Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to some of you, and peace out to the rest of you. Blackest hearted, blackest minded, blackest man. Shine a black in and sign it again. Asking you to hit the share button for reasons that you already know. If you look at the National Rational, that's the name of the channel. There's an officer named Stephen Meade. Stephen Meade was penalized because he did not shoot a black suspect back in 2016 in West Virginia. I actually was sent a list of about 6 officers with the pictures, not the names, and what happened to them because they chose to be good, honest police officers. And they didn't go along with certain corruptions. They lost jobs for things like stopping officers or reporting officers who broke someone's nose while they were in handcuffs or things like that. So we're asking, we're writing saying to officers, where are you when bad cops are doing these things if you're a good cop? But I'm pointing this out because I want you to understand that, unfortunately, corrupt people always look out for each other more so than honest people do. If you're generally honest and you've been honest and you're coupled with other honest people in your work, what winds up happening is that the honest people, they're going to step up and they're going to say, look, one day you do something wrong, and they're going to look at you and say, yeah, well, see, you're an honest person, but today you're not. You're going to pay for this. And one of the reasons is because they're not afraid that you're going to be linked and tapped into a bunch of other corrupt individuals to retaliate against them, murder them, retaliate somehow, cover it up, make it look like there was nothing. They're not worried about that being the case. When you're corrupt and you move up, they're afraid that you are tapped into a network of corrupt officers that are going to back them up against you every time because you were on the up and up. You were honest. This is why it is that there are cops who will make split-second decisions. They know doggone well that in the event they choose not to brutalize brutalize a suspect that's black or poor or any combination thereof, they're going to catch it. Chris Dorner snapped because he was trying to do the right thing, and he kept on getting whiteballed for it. Don't say he was blackballed. He was whiteballed because that's what it is. So he finally snapped and said, I'm going to take y'all with me. He had nowhere to go. There was nothing he could have done. Something else happened. There was an officer, black American officer, sister. I forgot exactly. I think she reported something. Another officer is filing a federal lawsuit against the precinct in Manhattan because he chose not to make a black officer's job and life hard along with the rest of his team. So they alienated him as well. So what I'm saying is that the corruption runs deep. They know what they're doing. They know they're wrong. They are operating corruptly, specifically because it is corrupt, and they hate those who are honest. They hate the honest ones. That's what I'm trying to get you to understand. And that's why they retaliate against them. And this is why it is that officers who go in with good ideals and good intentions quickly learn if they're not going to be corrupt, they actually have to fly under the radar, even more so than if they're going to be corrupt. Because by them not being corrupt, they're already not protected. Now, if they report corruption and attract attention and blow the whistle, it's over for them. And this is why Betty Shelby got not only exonerated, but was able to train other officers in a nearby jurisdiction after she killed Terrence Crutcher. But you take these officers that have actually reported some corruption, or not going along with it, or not covered up for someone else who was corrupt, and what happens to them? They get whiteballed. They can't move up. They can't perform their job. They can't get back up when they need it, and it's over for them. The job is made too dangerous because they are abandoned to the elements, the hostile elements that officers have to face. They are abandoned to them and maybe even set up. Because, I mean, if you're a corrupt officer, what's to stop you from setting up the honest one that you think is going to rat you out because they saw you stealing something from someone, or taking a bribe, or roughing somebody up that was in handcuffs? You see how it goes? This is what winds up happening. It's the same thing with the gynocracy. It's the same thing with the matriarchy. The gynocracy and the matriarchy, they know that they're wrong to a certain extent. They know they're wrong, especially if they've been around for any length of time. They know they're wrong. You know what? They've got their minds made up. We're wrong. We're corrupt. And if anybody decides that they're going to tell the truth about anything, we are going to have them marked as though they are insane. And we're not even going to be the first ones to do it. We're going to have the goons and the mandingos do it first. If a man calls us on anything, the first thing we'll do is say, well, you just mad because you got hurt. You a wounded puppy. And mark my words, Race Mujahid, salam alaikum, brother. You're right. What you said was correct. I don't know your ex-wife's side of the story, but what I do know is that based on your side of the story, mark my words, these Gynocrat goons and matriarchal mandingos, brother, are going to be the ones that are going to come after you first. Then the Gynocrats and the matriarchs themselves will do so. But the goons and mandingos are going to precede them, and they're going to say, you just mad because your wife cheated and left you for another guy. The better man won. Deal with it. Stop crying about it. And Race, as a Muslim, I can tell you, bro, you really got a bad deal that a Muslim husband's not supposed to get. It's one thing when she comes to you and says, we're done, goodbye, and then later she gets with somebody else. But when they are seeing somebody behind your back, communicating with another dude in exactly the same way they wouldn't want you talking to another lady. And I bet you your ex-wife hated the idea of polygyny. I bet she couldn't stand it. But she's seeing somebody behind your back, according to your side of the story. And I want to be fair to both sides. I've only heard yours. But what I am going to say is that the goons and mandingos are going to be the ones to come out and say, you know what, you just hurt, you just whining like a little B word, keep on trucking, suck it up, buttercup, all that stuff. They're going to be the main ones to say that first. You probably didn't get none while you probably wasn't blowing her back out right. That's what they're going to say. And you may have heard this stuff already, Race. I know because when I simply give objective observations, they try that with me too. And see, the thing is that when it comes down to it, the matriarchs and the Gynocrats know that they're not telling their sons what they need to know. They're aware of this. They're not telling their nephews, their grandsons, their younger brothers either. When they reach a certain age, they realize they're not doing it. They just don't care. And as a matter of fact, one of the reasons that they don't do it is because they would rather have their son, their grandson, their nephew, their younger brother be that simp cuck who only has the option to take care of other men's kids than to be fully aware and fully in the know as to what the games are. They know this. In other words, they are siding with other sisters' instinct to mate with one and then bring the baby to another over their own genetic instinct or over their own genetic interest in having one of their male relatives to have his own and take care of and raise rightfully his own. Their conditioning that is against us runs so deep that they're looking at their own male genetic relatives as being genetically inferior and therefore unfit to have their own offspring and raise their own offspring. To have them no matter who raises them, but definitely not to have and raise their own. That's the truth of the matter. I actually heard someone say something about how I heard one of the ladies that I don't have a grudge with and that I do have respect for explain to men that they weren't chosen because of masculinity. I want to explain this right quick. This lady is one of those that does not follow the hyena path. And so therefore, while she's aware of the hyena path, she does not have that same hyena experience. She's not the hyena. So she knows about them by observation. But I want to explain this. That stuff is not necessarily true. One of the things she did not say that I've heard yet, and I'm still going to listen to the rest of that video, but what I have not heard so far, in I'd say about the first 2/3 of the video, I've not heard her admit that the Gynocrats and matriarchs don't know how to assess masculinity, especially in comparison to other communities. How do I know? The way I know this is that when I was, I mentioned before, when I was in high school, I was, you could say underappreciated or underestimated, I would say. What happened is that I started fighting, as I've told you all before, and I had 3 fights in 1 year, and all of them were with black males. I didn't like it, being raised pro-black. But you know what? White guys were not challenging me. They were not doing it. Only my own was challenging me. Only my own was really overstepping bounds like that. Nobody else. No Latin American was trying to mess with me that bad to the point where they were like, well, you won't fight about it? They never got to that point. No white guy. No Vietnamese, no Thai, no Cambodian or Laotian. None of them. It was only black males and females. And I got into 3 fights. When this happened, actually after my second fight, I started getting more attention from sisters, as I mentioned before in previous recordings. Mind you, I was 18, I was 17 at this point. I went to college. I don't mean direct, I went to a college prep program during the summer of '94, actually. And it was at an HBCU. And at this summer prep program, there were people from my hometown that knew about my 2 fights, the last one being in the other guy's driveway. They'd heard they knew about it, and they made mention of it in front of the other participants of the program who were from other places. So, I was a ladies' man at this point. And that threw me for a loop because I didn't have to, I was not arguing with them. It was nothing like that. All of a sudden, the way that I was being treated was vastly different than anything I'd seen before, and my stupid behind attributed this to their own educational ambitions and levels. In other words, they weren't the ratchet hood chicks that I had been to my first 2 years of high school with. So it didn't dawn on me that in actuality, the ones from my 3rd year of high school that I just completed were not really that ratchet and hood in their upbringing. They were such in their outlook and in their assessment of men. That's all it was. It didn't occur to me. And so when one of actually you could say my 3rd girlfriend in that program, she was actually from my hometown. We had met a few weeks before we had to go to these programs. She was in one prep program that started 2 weeks halfway through mine. So we got together. And at the end of the day, it came down to this. She did not know how to assess masculinity herself. And she came from a good family with an education. But she did not know how to assess it. What do you think I'm supposed to say now realizing that this is actually not something that stopped at that age. I got to record and I got to tell y'all to tell these young brothers how bad it is. They're going to be dealing with 92 octane sometimes that don't have any better sense on how to assess not just masculinity, but specifically black male masculinity any better than your stereotypical ratchet. And as a matter of fact, when you are a man from those environments that tend to produce the 92 octanes, or you're a man from the environments with which the 92 octanes are associated, you actually, as you grow older, have a higher chance of being approached by an 85 octane ratchet, an 87 octane semi-ratchet, or real ratchet, than you have of being even blinked at or winked at by a 92. That's real. The ones that come from the same environment that you're associated with are the ones that actually show the least interest. They're the ones that do not outgrow the foolishness and the effery. Neither one really does, but it seems to take them a lot longer in reality, in all honesty. And this is because they fall under pressure, even more pressure, to prove their identity with the matriarchy and gynocracy by not picking better. If they choose to do this, they could be socially ostracized. So that man that they do choose now has to be such that he can replace her female friends in life, because she ain't gonna have no black ones. It's not gonna happen. Or she's gonna have very few. They're going to be ostracized if they show her social comfort. That's how the gynocracy and the matriarchy works. It works exactly like these corrupt police departments do. The ones that are good for us are the ones that get ostracized. No mercy. And they're the ones that get lied about. And looking back on it, my mother once said to someone, I don't know why it is that the sisters in this town, I mean, the one I grew up in, she said, I don't know why the sisters in this town are so damn messy and what they're so angry with me about. She said this at one point. And then later on, she told some within earshot of me, she had another conversation and she said, it's almost like they're jealous because of the husband I got. And truth be told, she has said that my father has been an exceptionally good husband in comparison to what her friends have had, even her friends, her good friends who have chosen good men. It dawned on me within the last year that the reason some of them were jealous was not only because she had this good husband. Some of it wasn't even necessarily jealousy. Actually, some of it was, in fact, just pure malice. Malice for a guy like my father. And the malice for a gentleman like my father was then spilled over onto her because why did she pick him? I mean, even if they like him, they don't want to reward a man like that for the life choices that he has made. Because while he will defend black women, he prioritizes my mother, his sister, and my daughters for his defense. They get priority. Strangers don't get to enjoy that to the same extent. Maybe that's what it is. In either case, he's the kind that they did not want to see being so rewarded. And I'm going to be honest, coming up on that Gulf Coast, the women on the Gulf Coast, when it comes to being messy and negative, sisters on the Gulf Coast are ahead of the curve, if you really want to know the truth. So when I got to Atlanta, got to college, you see, the truth be told, when I went to the college prep program, that when it was still along the Gulf Coast, I got back after it was done and I told my parents about the experience. And I said, I had not been around many of our people with that caliber of mind in all honesty. And I'm glad that I was. And I'm looking forward to going to an HBCU when I finish out this senior year. That's what I told my folks. And my dad said to me, listen, I heard from so-and-so's dad that you apparently were the ladies' man in this program. I said, yeah, I was. And he said to me, this is the difference. You will have to be careful even when you go to college. But I do want you to understand that you have the option. I mean, you're not going to be the one that they just select for mistreatment. When you go to college, that changes because they're a bit more mature. So you're no longer the one they don't, the one they don't want to be seen with or anything like that. I did not attribute this to the fact that they knew I'd had fights and won. I didn't think of that. When I got to college in Atlanta, it was right back to what it was like starting high school all over again, as far as they were concerned. It was like starting high school all over again. The treatment, the conditions, the blame, the worst assumptions, these were all the same. I wasn't the only one to face them. I had to face it in some of the worst forms because of difficulty in identification. But at the end of the day, what my father did not know was that things had actually gotten worse for when he was growing up. And so what it came down to was that no, in actuality, for my generation, they don't outgrow that. That stage that they just have to go through where they pick the most stereotypical dude because they think that's masculinity. When they can't tell machismo from masculinity. It's not a stage that they are outgrowing or that they were going to outgrow in my generation just because they went off to college. That was not going to happen. It was less likely. Now, maybe if I had been from the Northeast, probably would have been, let's say maybe New Jersey. New York City, no, would have been about the same. But that's what was going on. It is the ability to tell machismo from masculinity. Just like with police officers, it is the inability to tell right from wrong. The inability to trust anybody. Any civilian, I should say. These inabilities are the reasons why they both operate the same way. And that way is you know corrupt ones from honest ones after a short time. And you must ostracize the honest to protect the profits that come from being corrupt. So corrupt officers can make more money unless they get caught and proven they can make more money, and they know this. So the honest officers are a threat to that extra illegal income. And it's the same thing with the matriarchy and the gynocracy. They know that they're getting a too sweet of a deal. Entirely too sweet of a deal if they can find a sucker to do this. And it's not really even that profitable for them. It is a mess. Just like corrupt officers live somewhat messy lives because they've got to keep covering their tracks and keep covering up the corruption. It's the same thing with the gynocracy and the matriarchy. Their lives are messy. But if they came clean, it would be even more difficult for them, especially in the very beginning. And they're just not going to come clean. And so when ladies do sort of give men a heads up as to what corrupt women would want, what's in their best interest, and what to look out for, oh my God, they are hated for it. Now, in America, I've told you, and I've said this before I even had a YouTube channel. I said that with a police force like this and with an entire system like this, with corporate America being like this, where non-racist HR personnel can be ostracized because, they gave that masculine black man a chance at a job with a good salary, and he's heterosexual, and which could lead to them being ostracized for it. And the police, of course, that are not corrupt can get ostracized and even endangered because of their honesty. What do you do in a situation like this? You don't have a way to win. You've got to leave and go elsewhere. You see, I said this before I even had a YouTube channel. Now you understand why, gentlemen, if you want to have a normal domestic life that is healthy for you as a man, you're going to have to leave. You understand it. And right now we're learning a lesson. The European Union does not want American travelers. You see that? So it behooves us to leave sooner rather than later, because the later we leave, the more difficult it is going to be for us to be accepted anywhere. So you don't have a choice, gentlemen. You want a healthy domestic life, you've got to get out. Because the system right there is against you having exactly that. And it's also against you being treated fairly should you ever be placed in handcuffs. So, you've been pushed out, gentlemen. Both of them are pushing you out. That's what the gynocracy has to do with the police force or the police system right there where you are in the wilderness of North America. I hope this helps out and explains a lot. And I hope that one day this is not true anymore. Thank you for listening. Black heart, black mind, blackout, assalamu alaikum, and black heterosexual male power specifically because they don't like it.